There's a line you don't cross, especially when it comes to a child's birthday. My sister crossed it. I'm Zoe. I live in the suburbs outside Sacramento. Things have never come easy for me, but I don't complain, not out loud. Lately, though, something's been sitting on my chest. Heavy, raw, like the air right before a storm. And this time, it wasn't about bills or my ex or work. It was about my son. About what should have been a normal, joyful birthday, his 10th, and how it turned into something else entirely. Something ugly. It still makes my stomach turn. I had it all mapped out in my head. Nothing extravagant, just a picnic at Woodlake Park, a few friends from school, a soccer ball, sandwiches, and a homemade cake. Chocolate, Kian's favorite. I even managed to save up a little for balloons and those little dinosaur napkins he loves. We haven't had the money to do anything big the last few years, but this one felt different. It felt needed. After everything, it was a chance to remind him that he matters. I wanted that so badly, not just for him, but for me. A moment of dignity. A way to say, even if life's been messy, we're still standing. He was excited. Kept asking how many more days. Drew little dinosaurs on the invitation cards we were going to hand out. Just the two of us, making something together. It meant the world. Then, she showed up. Esther. She didn't knock. She never does. Just walked in like she owned the place. Polished, cold, smelling like her usual mix of Chanel and superiority. I was cutting fruit in the kitchen, thinking about how I'd sneak in candles on the cake without making it too obvious we'd reused decorations from last year. "You're throwing him a party?" she said, arms crossed. I nodded. "Just something small, in the park." She let out a dry laugh, sharp, thin. "Zoe, you barely hold a job. How do you think that looks?" "It's irresponsible." I tried to keep my hands steady. "It's his birthday." "You're not fit to host a birthday," she snapped. "I forbid it." Those words, like a slap, like I was a child again, and she was the one holding the keys to everything. I wanted to scream, to tell her to leave, but I didn't. I just stood there, biting my tongue, letting the knife press a little too hard into the melon rind. She kept going, said if I went through with it, she might need to inform the right people. CPS. "For Kian's safety," she added, as if that somehow made it better. Esther has always been the one who made it. Good job, clean house, a husband who works in finance and never speaks. She thinks that gives her license. To speak for the rest of us, to judge, to control. And me? I've spent my life playing the fool, nodding along, minimizing myself so the room wouldn't explode. But something cracked that day. And then, somehow, it got worse. 2 days later, I walked into my sister's house for Sunday dinner, because family obligation is a quiet, cruel thing. Kian was outside playing with his cousins. I was in the kitchen, looking for napkins, when I saw my niece's phone screen light up on the table. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. A group chat, family members, cousins, Esther. She's always been useless, just chasing fantasies, can't even keep her fridge full, but she wants to throw parties. It hit me like cold water. She's an embarrassment, always has been. And the worst part? No one disagreed. Not one person said, "That's too far." Not even my aunt, who used to slip me $5 under the table when Esther wasn't looking. I stood there frozen, the napkin still in my hand, my ears ringing with something deeper than shame. Recognition, because I'd heard those words before, from our father. "You'll never amount to anything, Zoe." It was like Esther had inherited the script. And everyone else just watched the show. Later that night, at home, I sat in the dark while Kian slept. The birthday cake box still on the counter, unopened. My hands curled into fists. Not from rage, not entirely, but from something sharper. A need to finally ask myself what I'd always avoided. What if I'm not the problem? I'd been told my whole life that I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too unstable. But maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe they just needed me to believe that so they could keep their version of the story alive. I leaned back on the couch, stared at the ceiling, the same one that leaked when it rained and creaked when you walked too hard. My mind wandered back to all the times I let things slide, all the moments I stayed silent, for peace, for family. But peace had never come. I looked at the party supplies, the streamers, the little paper hats. Keon's drawings still taped to the fridge, a dinosaur with a crooked smile and the words, "Best birthday ever. Soon." I stood up. The next night, after homework and dinner, I tucked him into bed. He asked, "Is my party still happening?" I kissed his forehead. "Yes," I whispered. "Even if it's just you and me, buddy, it's happening." He smiled, sleepy, already drifting. And me? I stood in the doorway, watching his chest rise and fall, a quiet fire building in my ribs. They've talked about me for years. Behind my back, to my face, they've called me unstable, reckless, emotional. But never once did they see what I've survived. I'm not backing down this time. This birthday, this small, silly, beautiful thing, it's happening. Even if it's the last thing I do. The morning light filtered in through the blinds like it always did. Soft, warm, almost kind. For a moment, I thought maybe the storm had passed, that maybe Esther had vented her cruelty and moved on. I made coffee, poured cereal for Keon, and helped him into his hoodie for school. His smile, innocent, wide-eyed, felt like a small victory after the week we'd had. Once he was out the door and the silence returned, I walked to the front step to check for the usual stack of junk mail and circulars. That's when I saw it, a plain white envelope taped to my front door. No stamp, no name, no handwriting. I pulled it off slowly, my fingers already tensing. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed in bold black letters. "You don't deserve this. Watch your back. She's not done yet." No signature, no return address. Just that. My heart stuttered. For a second, I stood completely still, like if I didn't move, maybe the meaning wouldn't catch up to me. Then the questions came rushing in. Who left this? Who knows? And what exactly isn't she done with? I scanned the street. Quiet. A jogger passed by, oblivious. A car door slammed 2 houses down. Nothing out of place. And yet everything suddenly felt wrong. I closed the door gently behind me, locking both bolts. I reread the note, again and again. The words pulsed. I tried to tell myself it might have been someone trying to help, a warning maybe, or maybe it was a threat. That's what Esther did best after all. She never screamed, never threw things. She used whispers and leverage. I thought back to last Thanksgiving, when our cousin Denise had confronted her over how she treated Aunt Carol during her illness. A week later, Denise got a cease and desist letter claiming defamation. Esther always knew how to twist the truth just enough to make you look unstable, reactive. The problem. "People like you don't survive lawsuits," she once told me after I pushed back on her trying to make medical decisions for Mom. That sentence had lived rent-free in my head ever since. She didn't just argue. She used the system. She used people's fears. And now this note, it wasn't paranoia anymore. This felt calculated. That afternoon, while cleaning up the living room, my phone pinged with a new email. The subject line stopped me cold. Potential custody concern, Keon Ford. It was from a generic law firm. No logo, no name I recognized. The message inside was vague but sharp around the edges. Phrases like, "Concerns have been raised regarding the environment," and "An informal review may be initiated." My fingers trembled as I scrolled down, rereading each line. They didn't accuse me of anything, not directly, but the implication was there. Clear as day. Esther. This was her handwriting, even if she hadn't typed it. She wanted me scared. She wanted me to cancel the birthday, to doubt myself, to feel like a bad mother before anyone else could say it out loud. But the panic didn't last as long this time. I printed the email, clipped it into a folder, and labeled it Custody Interference. I started documenting everything. If she wanted a paper trail, I'd give her one, but it wouldn't be the one she expected. Later that day, I sat Keon down and talked to him calmly. "If anyone asks you questions about Mommy or the house," I said, keeping my voice steady, "just ask them to speak to me first, okay?" He nodded like it was nothing. But to me, it was everything. He deserved a mother who didn't shrink at shadows. I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning the apartment like I was preparing for an inspection. I took pictures, Every room, every corner. I looked up California custody laws, even called a legal aid hotline and bookmarked their number, just in case. Nothing I found gave Esther the right to do what she was doing. Throwing a birthday party wasn't a crime. Loving your kid wasn't a liability. By dinner, something had shifted in me, a current of defiance. I'd lived too long bracing for impact. Not this time. Just as I was washing the dishes, my phone rang. Blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. Zoe? The voice was soft. Female. Nervous. Yes? I used to work for your sister, she said. I saw some things. Things she's done to people when they didn't go along with her. I didn't want to get involved, but I saw what she's planning. My heart thudded. Who are you? I can't say. Not yet, but I can prove it. What she's doing to you? It's not the first time. I stayed silent, letting the words settle. She continued. If you want to meet, I'll bring what I have. Somewhere public. You pick the time. I gave her a time and place. A little cafe near the school. Midday tomorrow. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a journal I hadn't touched in months. I started writing. Every thought, every moment, every scare tactic, every memory, every threat. When you record what hurts you, my therapist once said, you strip it of power. I believed her now. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. Let her come. I'm not scared anymore. I got there early, parked near the far corner of the lot, close to the trees lining the back fence. I needed the open view. No surprises. The engine was running, but I didn't turn on the radio, just sat there, hands resting on the wheel, watching every car pull in like I was waiting for someone from a dream I hadn't meant to remember. I kept replaying Keon's face in my mind, his eyes that morning when I promised him the party would still happen. No matter what, I'd said, because I needed him to believe something would stay normal. Then a white sedan coasted in, parked 3 spaces over from where I'd been watching the entrance. A woman stepped out, hood up, cap low, sunglasses too big for her face. She didn't walk, she darted, nervous like prey. When she tapped on my window, I didn't flinch. I unlocked the door, she slid in, and before she even said hello, I could tell she didn't want to be seen. You Zoe? She asked, barely above a whisper. Her voice had an edge, like she'd been holding it in for too long. I nodded. You're Monique? That's what I'm using. She looked down the aisle, then leaned back into the seat, arms crossed. I left the engine running, windows cracked just enough to feel the October breeze slip in. She took a deep breath. I worked for your sister. For 2 years. Personal assistant, calendar, emails, errands, all of it. I didn't respond, just listened. She's not who she pretends to be. That smiling, picture-perfect act, it's armor. Underneath, she's scared, angry, ruthless. I waited. She pays people, not just for work, for damage. If she sees you as competition, she'll dismantle your life from the inside out. Quiet, legal, strategic. You're not the first. She opened her phone and tapped until she found a folder. This is from 2019. Your Aunt Carol? Esther blackmailed her into silence during a will dispute. Said she'd exposed debts, affairs, stuff that might have been half true, half made up. Carol gave up her share. I saw the drafts. Esther wrote threats before Carol even hired a lawyer. She held the screen out, email after email, cold and meticulous, with subject lines like, initiate pre-litigation stance and narrative control options. Dates all lined up, months ahead of when anything actually happened. She keeps templates, fills in names, uses proxies. The goal is always the same, stay on top, no matter who she has to step on. I felt my hands tighten on the wheel. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the first one who didn't fold, and because I saw what she's planning now. You need to be ready. She hesitated, then locked eyes with me. There's more. Something personal. I didn't move. A few years back, she was drunk at a dinner party, loud, talking trash. She told someone you weren't even supposed to be born, that your parents almost gave you up. Said you were a mistake, a guilt baby. The words landed slow, then sunk hard. For a moment, I couldn't hear the cars outside or the hum of my own engine, just the sound of my breath catching. That's not. I stopped, didn't finish the thought. She said your mother had dreams. Big ones. That you ruined them. Said your dad wanted to do the right thing, but never recovered. I looked out at the parking lot, grocery carts, Sunday drivers, a mother scolding her kid in the distance. Nothing out there looked like what I felt inside. Numb, then raw, then somehow steady. Monique swallowed. I thought you should know what you're really up against. This isn't just some petty birthday sabotage. She wants you erased. I turned to her. She's not the only one who gets to decide what I am. She nodded. Didn't smile. You good? I am now. She slid a small flash drive from her pocket and left it in the center console. This is what I could grab without her noticing. I'm not testifying, Zoe. I'm not brave like that, but I'll send more if I can. She opened the door, paused. One last thing. Don't underestimate her. She doesn't play fair. She hits where it hurts. Then she was gone. I sat there long enough for the seat to grow warm beneath me. Then I drove home. Not fast, just steady. After Kian was in bed, I sat at the kitchen table and sorted everything. Her emails, the screenshots, photos of the notes. I backed them up to a new flash drive. Wrote a message to Rachel, my friend at the paper. I didn't send it yet. Just saved it as a draft. But it was there. Ready. I put the flash drive in an envelope and slid it into the back of a cookbook, between 2 pages stained with old tomato sauce. Labeled it, If Anything Happens. Not scared anymore, just aware. I wasn't protecting myself anymore. I was preserving something, a future where my son wouldn't grow up inside someone else's version of his mother. Later, I stepped outside to drop a bill in the mailbox. The night was still, the sky wide open, but something was there, an envelope resting on top of my stack. No stamp. Same handwriting as before. I opened it under the porch light. You think you found strength. Let's see how strong you are without your son. I dressed Kian in his best shirt, the crisp cotton one with little navy dots. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his collar, tossing anxious glances at himself. I watched him and thought of the quote someone once told me. Success is the best revenge. I whispered it under my breath, hoping it would settle in both of us. We drove past the banquet hall. The lights were dazzling. Strings of white bulbs, spotlights sweeping the red carpet, flashes from cameras that caught faces and gowns. I felt my stomach twist. That should have been us. I dropped Kian off at Mrs. Green's house, thanked her, then walked toward the entrance, hugging my jacket closed. I didn't plan to go inside, just close enough to feel part of that night, even if viewed through glass. Through the windows, I watched Chesney ascend the stage under applause. She wore silver. The crowd roared. Flashbulbs popped again and again. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Social media notifications flooded my screen. The hashtag #Chesney honored was already trending. A couple near me whispered, There she is. Esther's daughter gets the night she always deserved. The words stung like cold air. A server came by and handed me an event schedule. I looked at it. Names, speeches, sponsors, everything. But no mention of me. I once helped plan this very event. My name wasn't there. I felt the sting sharpen when Kian's text came in. Mom, I wished for us to have a moment like that. My chest tightened. I held my phone, watching people inside standing, clapping, smiling. The world looked like it accepted Chesney by default. Me? I was the sister who never did enough, erased by omission. The next morning, I stumbled into the kitchen and froze at the fridge. Pinned under a magnet was the school newsletter. I pulled it off, and my eyes fell on Eldon's name. Top math scorer, district-wide. My breath caught. Eldon, my nephew. The quiet one, the one never praised. Growing up, I craved praise. For grades, for work, for being seen. I never got it. Always overshadowed by Esther's light. I took a picture and posted it to the family group chat. So proud of Eldon. Moments later, I saw a new group photo. Chesney on stage, holding her award, Esther next to her. No mention of Eldon. I texted Esther, hoping for acknowledgement. Did you see the newsletter about Eldon? Message delivered. No reply. Inside me, something snapped. They'd celebrate anybody, as long as it wasn't me. I sat at my desk, pulling up Monique's screenshots, those legal drafts, Keon's class projects, the birthday plan I'd hidden away. Everything was evidence. Everything connected. I started mapping a strategy. Who to talk to first, when to share, when to wait, not to destroy, to protect. Keon came in, sleepy-eyed, holding a bowl of cereal. I looked at him and said, "You deserve your celebration. No one else gets to decide that." He nodded. He believed me. That night, when everything was quiet, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. No one there. Just a professional envelope slipped under the door. The return address read, Mr. Arliss Co. My heart pounded as I crouched and picked it up, feeling that familiar weight, like the calm before a storm ready to break. The envelope was heavy, not by weight, by intent. I picked it up from the floor where it had been slipped under my door that morning. My hands hesitated for a second before tearing it open. The seal read, Mr. Arliss Company, in sleek silver print. Inside was a single letter, legal, cold, a cease and desist. It accused me of defamation and hostile social behavior, said I was actively harming the family's reputation. There were no details, no proof, just vague legal language meant to rattle. It threatened potential legal action if I continued these behaviors. Behaviors like what? Speaking truth? Wanting a birthday party for my son? I sat on the couch and stared at the letter. The words blurred a little, but the message was clear. Esther was done playing passive. She wanted to shut me down, silence me with fear. And it worked. For a little while, it did. I stayed in the house most of the day, didn't return calls, didn't open blinds. I kept going back to old memories, dinners at Marva's, me staying quiet, letting things slide so the evening didn't turn ugly, always afraid to cause trouble, always too scared to speak when it mattered. I pulled out a notebook and wrote Keon a letter I never meant to give him. If something happens to me, this is why. It's not your fault. You deserve more than what they allowed us to have. I looked up at the fridge and saw his drawings, bright scribbles of us at a park, at a table, at a party. In one of them, we were holding hands in front of balloons. I remember that day. Homemade cupcakes, a plastic tablecloth, just me and him and a sparkler candle. It hit me then. The party wasn't just about cake or gifts. It was about saying, we exist, we matter. And they hated that. Still, I had no clue how to fight back, until I remembered the legal aid office down on 27th. I grabbed the letter and headed out. The office smelled like paper and hand sanitizer. A young woman, college-aged, looked over the letter. She said it was a scare tactic, no formal action yet, no court filing, nothing official. She told me to save all messages, take screenshots, keep a detailed log, and if anything physical happened or threats escalated, then I could push for a protective order. It wasn't much, but it helped. I left with a small folder, a tiny bit steadier. I kept repeating it in my head like a chant. Knowledge is the first layer of armor. That night, I sat with my laptop, watching old videos. Keon blowing out candles, dancing in socks, smearing frosting on his cheeks. Our parties were quiet, yes, but they were ours. No photographers, no hashtags, just laughter, just love. I heard my grandma's voice in my head. Some people will never clap unless it's for themselves. I started designing a simple digital invite for Keon's 10th birthday. Just a few neighbors, close friends, backyard lights, but real, safe, his. I messaged Janelle and asked her to be there, not just as support, but as a legal witness, just in case. Then I ordered a small voice recorder online. Cheap, discreet, insurance. As I stared at the screen, I felt the fear shift. It didn't vanish, but it lost its grip. I may not have her money, but I have the truth, and I have my son. Around 11:30 that night, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. One voicemail. I played it once. Then again. It was Esther. This birthday isn't happening. I promise you that. And if you push it, I'll make sure people see who you really are. No yelling, no drama, just quiet cruelty, like a knife through fabric. I saved the message, went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and thought, she just gave me the match. Now I know where to strike. I came home late, the hallway dark and unfamiliar. The same path I'd walked 1,000 times now felt like a corridor of shadows. My steps echoed. I sensed someone outside, footsteps, a silhouette shifting beyond the curtains. My breath hitched. No phone call, no message, just silence and tension. I went to the little drawer where I stashed Monique's documents. I knew exactly where it was, but the drawer was open, papers scattered. My heart thundered. Someone had been inside my home. The line between security and invasion had vanished. I stood frozen, then forced myself to move. I crept to the basement door, the old, unused one where light barely reached. I opened it slowly, descending into damp air and musty smells. At the bottom, behind stacked boxes, I found a sealed box marked with my mother's maiden name. I pried it open and froze. Inside were deeds, original property titles, documents showing name changes that favored Esther. And there, in my grandmother's handwriting, a letter stating the home was intended to be co-owned by Delara. My breath caught. They stole not only my voice, but my home. The title had quietly transferred. I held those papers, feeling the weight of betrayal. I retreated upstairs and packed a duffel with essentials, photographs, my son's drawings, my legal files. I polished the front door keys, labeled them archive, because I knew I wouldn't return. I scribbled a note. I am gone. I leave with my dignity. I went quietly into Eldon's room. He stirred, eyes fluttering open. We are leaving tonight, I whispered. He didn't resist. We slipped out. I locked the door behind us for the last time. Outside, the air burned with possibility and fear. I walked past the yard where I played as a girl, past the porch swing. The world behind me felt like a lie. I touched the car door. The engine started. As we drove, I passed old streets I knew by heart, streetlights, the park where Esther and I used to chase dusk, flashbacks, me staying silent so I wouldn't disappoint Mom. But tonight, I wouldn't be silent anymore. In the back seat, Eldon slept. His small shoulder shifted gently. The radio played a song my mother used to hum, bittersweet. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the past slip behind me. When dawn broke, we pulled into the driveway of a rented home I found days ago, the kind you never notice until you need it. I dragged bags inside, set up Kian's bed, laid out Monique's documents. Shadows flickered. What if they find me here? But I steadied myself. This house was mine now, at least for tonight. I locked the door and exhaled hard, the sound echoing in the quiet. I was no longer running. I was reclaiming. That night, my phone vibrated. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Esther. Return the house. Tonight. Outside, headlights swept past the windows. I pressed my palm to the glass. War had begun. I'm sitting in the living room of the safe house, phone in hand, heart hammering. My gaze falls on every piece of paper strewn across the table. The legal letter, the deeds from the basement, Monique's emails. Each one a reminder that this isn't about me alone anymore. This is for Kian, for our future. I glance at the little recorder I bought. Maybe it's the only thing standing between me and being silenced. Suddenly, my phone chimes. A message. Seen this yet? A link. My fingers tremble as I tap it. The post opens. A private family group, captioned, Zoe is unstable and dangerous. Comments roll in. She's always had issues. I always wondered why she stayed. Don't trust her. Some names I recognize. Cousins, distant friends, people I thought I could trust. The post gets shared to a neighbor's Facebook group. I thought she was sweet until she snapped. Notifications flood my phone. Anger, pity, confusion, cruelty. My chest tightens as I read. They don't see me. They see what she says I am. The next morning, I wake to a bank alert, a large withdrawal from my checking account. I froze at the screen. No legit reason. I suspect Torin is behind it, pushing financial sabotage. I call the bank, demand a freeze, flag fraud. But already, a vendor I'd ordered supplies from cancels, saying billing issue. The strategy is clear. Take money, silence me. I press through the panic, telling myself, you can take my money, but not my voice. That evening, I drive across the street from their property, just past the lights of Esther's house. I dial her home line. It rings. No answer. I hit record on my device and leave. Stop this. Leave my name out of your lies. Then I step into the street and shout at the dark. You think you silence me with whispers. Watch me roar. No light comes on. No face. Just the night. The symbolic gesture feels like a turning point. Back at the safe house, I replay the recording. Ambient noise, my own voice trembling, clarity underneath. I lay out a plan. Which gossip post to counter, which evidence to release, which journalist to contact. I write rules for myself, never respond emotionally, only with proof. Later, I call Monique. It's scorched earth time. She warns quietly, be careful who you trust. I hang up. I know now, this is full-scale war. My laptop chimes just as I settle into bed. A public drive link. A video file titled, Her Side of the Story. My breath catches. Who sent this? I stare at the screen, dread and vindication twisting inside me at once. I stepped out of the car and looked up at the hotel. Golden chandeliers glowed behind thick glass, soft music floated out from inside, and the red carpet shimmered beneath flashing cameras. This was the kind of night Esther lived for, fabricated elegance wrapped around a family that was rotting inside. I held tight to my clutch. Inside, the flash drive dug into my palm. I wasn't here to celebrate. I was here to confront. As I walked past old cousins and high school friends I hadn't seen in decades, some gave me a brief nod, others didn't look at me at all. The ones who used to call when they needed a babysitter. The ones who said nothing when I vanished. Esther stood near the entrance, shaking hands, smiling like a politician. I didn't speak. I just moved past her, spine straight, heart thudding. This wasn't a party. It was a battlefield. The ballroom was dressed in soft golds and deep maroons. The kind of color scheme Esther believed made us look established. I found a seat near the back, kept my eyes forward. Marva soon took the stage, slow but proud, thanking everyone for coming, talking about family values, endurance, legacy. I watched her closely. I'd always believed she had no idea what Esther was doing behind her back, but even silence has a cost. When Esther raised her glass and said, "To family, respect, and truth," the words clanged against every scar I carried. The lights dimmed just slightly. Esther nodded toward a staffer manning the AV controls. My gut tightened. She was about to do something. I stood, stepped toward the podium. I cleared my throat, loud enough to hush the murmur. I'd like to say something. Esther froze, her glass still raised. I slid the flash drive into the AV port, nodded to the staffer. The projector screen blinked. Then came the sound of a voice most hadn't heard in years, my grandmother Ottilie. Her tone was strong, clear. She was sitting at her kitchen table, hands folded. This home, it was always meant to be shared. Esther and Delara. Blood of mine, both of them. Don't let the papers fool you. Don't leave her nothing. Then came the scanned deeds, titles bearing Delara's name. Then newer ones, with only Esther's. The room was dead quiet. Eyes flicked from me to Esther, then back. I let the video play through. No commentary, no tears. When the screen went dark again, I spoke. She erased me, but I still stand. My voice didn't shake. I'd practiced that line. I meant every word. Esther stood slowly, cheeks flushed a deep red. That was edited, she snapped. She's lying. She forged those documents. She's unstable and desperate for attention. She turned toward the crowd. Don't let her fool you. I'll be taking legal action for defamation immediately. A few guests looked alarmed. Others looked unsure. Then I reached into my folder and pulled out Monique's emails, laid them on the podium. These are time-stamped, I said. Bank statements. A fraud alert I filed 2 days ago. My grandmother's handwriting is on those documents. If I was lying, I wouldn't leave a trail. The only person here rewriting history is you." The energy in the room shifted. I could feel it in the way people sat straighter. The silence around Esther got heavier. Marva rose next. Her voice was soft. "I didn't know," she whispered. Her eyes welled up. I didn't need her pity, just her understanding. Harlan, standing near the bar, slowly walked over and placed a hand on Esther's shoulder. She jerked away. "Don't you dare look at me like I'm the problem," she hissed, then stormed out. Torrin followed her, not even glancing back. I looked at Keon, sitting a few rows back. I whispered, more to myself than to him, "We win by truth, not vengeance." He smiled. I smiled back. Not triumphant, just relieved. After the last guest filtered out, I stepped off the stage, heels clicking against marble. My phone buzzed. A message from Arliss Co. popped up. "File will be in court by morning. Be ready." I woke up to the sound of birds and morning light pouring into the kitchen window. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't wake up bracing for something. No court date, no phone buzzing with gossip, just the quiet rustling of trees outside and the faint creak of the floorboards in my new home. Keon was already humming to himself in the next room, flipping through a comic book on the couch. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, cracking eggs into a pan. The smell of toast filled the air. 3 weeks ago, the court acknowledged my grandmother's final will. The footage made it impossible to ignore. My name, my rights, were legally reinstated. Esther didn't show up that day. Her lawyer quietly stepped away after the judge admitted the video into evidence. I didn't feel joy, just something calmer, like setting down a heavy bag after miles of walking. Ottilie wasn't perfect, but in the end, she tried to make things right. That mattered to me. I set 2 plates at the table. Keon smiled when I kissed his head. We ate without speaking much. The peace wasn't loud. It just was. I didn't check my phone. I didn't scroll. Some silences are a kind of power, too. Later that afternoon, while Keon was drawing by the window, I opened an old photo album. Pages of birthdays I never attended. Smiles frozen in time, posed around cakes I didn't bake, jokes I wasn't there to hear. I used to cry looking at these. Now I just looked. I started journaling, right there on the floor. "You don't have to burn the past to build the future," I wrote. I believe that now. I drafted a letter to Esther, not to reconnect, just to release the weight. I wrote, "You may never apologize, but I won't carry you anymore." I stared at the page for a while, then I tore it up. Some closure doesn't need witnesses. That evening, I took Keon for a walk around the neighborhood. There was a small footbridge behind our house, and he loved tossing sticks into the creek. As we walked, I told him, "Your dignity is yours to defend. No one else can decide your worth." He nodded, and we moved on, step by step, toward something better. A week passed, then 2. I started teaching. A small community class at the library. Single mothers mostly, some older women, some younger than I expected. I taught them about estate planning, protection, what to sign, what not to. I told my story once during the first session. I didn't tell it to cry or shock anyone. I told it so they'd understand it happens even in families that say, "We don't do things like that." At the end of the session, they stood and clapped. Not because I had suffered, but because I'd survived it without turning bitter. One older woman hugged me tight. She said, "We're never too old to protect ourselves." That stayed with me. I started recording videos, simple ones. How to read a deed. Signs of manipulation in family finances. I titled the series, "Not About Revenge," because that's what people always think. But it's about legacy, about what we leave our kids when the money's gone, our dignity, our truth, our voice. Then came Keon's 10th birthday. Just a few close friends, a small table in the yard, paper streamers strung from the porch beams. No clowns, no bounce house, no show, just music, laughter, and space to breathe. He unwrapped a set of charcoal pencils and a drawing pad. His face lit up. "You're my hero," he said, hugging me. I held his face in my hands. "You are seen," I whispered. That night, As we cleared plates, my phone rang. It was Marva. Her voice was quiet. I, I'd like to visit sometime, if that's okay. I didn't rush my answer. You can, but it'll be on my terms. She didn't argue. I understand. And maybe she did. Because closure doesn't always look like a courtroom win. Sometimes it's a new boundary. Sometimes it's saying, you don't get to define me anymore. Later that week, I sat on the back porch. The garden behind the house was still young. Nothing blooming yet, but it reminded me of the way Ottilie once described her favorite place. Quiet, full of promise. I took out my journal and wrote, "You rose without applause. That's strength." I closed it gently, and just as I set the journal down, the mail slot clicked. An envelope landed on the floor.